Good morning. At least it's morning here in Arizona. I am still having my coffee and we are going to get started cooking a few recipes today. So thank you for joining us. We are streaming to Facebook and YouTube. So feel free to leave questions. My husband Jim is manning those right now. He will help answer questions. Let me know if there's something I need to recover or sending links, whatever the case may be. If you do need to get a hold of me, sometimes it's hard to find important questions later on when we go back to the video after we're done. So make sure you send it, like direct message me through the My Plant-Based Family Facebook page, or you can send me an email on myplantbasedfamily@gmail.com. There's also a contact form on my website. So just make sure if it's super important that don't leave it to the chat box, because it could get lost if I need to follow up on something after the video. So today, hope you are doing okay. Today, we are going to make several recipes. Two of these main meals are actually from the Plant-Based Diet Meal Plans.com program. So hello to all the members who are watching. I hope you love these recipes this week. You can also find these recipes on My Plant-Based Family, and we'll put the links up for those later. But let me give you an overview of what we're making today, and then we'll get started. So the first thing, the first main meal that we're going to start getting prepped for is the lentil quinoa salad. Now this is very similar to the lentil fatouche salad at Pita Jungle. If you live here in Arizona and frequent Pita Jungle, it's my favorite salad. Now this is a whole food plant-based version. So we are going to use lentils, we're going to use quinoa and the same veggies, but we're not using oil, we're not making the dressing. You can just use your favorite dressing. But in order to have this salad ready, we are going to do some meal prepping of lentils and quinoa. And what I mean by that is, so we don't want to mix all this salad together and try to eat it all week, because those ingredients are not going to work super well together because things are going to get soggy, and then you won't be able to reheat it. But one of the great things about this salad is that the lentils and quinoa, you can heat those up and then put them on your salad. So it's like a nice hearty salad. Even if it's like a cool day or stormy or something, you can still eat salad, but it's still really warm and hearty. So we are about to get started on the quinoa and lentils for that. After we get those cooking, we are going to make a recipe I love so much. It's pumpkin baked oatmeal. And this recipe is not on My Plant-Based Family. And it's a recipe for the members in the Plant-Based Diet Meal Plans group. So we will get into this one in a minute and show it to you, but we are going to make this today. And instead of making it in the 9x9 pan that I normally do, I am going to use my Pampered Chef brownie pan just to make it a little different. It's also going to cook quicker. But so if you've been wondering how that would turn out, you're going to see. And then after we get those going, we are going to make a really good soup, but we don't make it often enough. It's the green chili cilantro lime soup. We love this soup. It's not super spicy, but it's full of flavor. I usually preface it with saying it's not a super kid-friendly soup, because kids don't always know kind of what to do with that much green chili and lime. But I think you're going to love it. If you like those flavors, you're definitely going to love it. So we're going to make a small tweak when we make it so that it cooks quicker for this video, so we can get on with things, because I know some of you have big plans for today. We do not. We are going to be hanging out at home. So let's just get cooking. Now, I mentioned the first things we're going to do is make the quinoa and lentils. So let's get started on the lentils first. All right, I'm grabbing my lentils. I'm going to grab a skillet. Now, it may seem odd. I'm going to grab a measuring cup. So I'll tell you a trick when you're cooking anything on the stove. This is what I always do. I always cook things in skillets if they'll fit. The reason why is because if you have like a saucepan that you're heating things up in, The problem with the saucepan is that the base is more narrow, so your water is deeper and it takes longer to come to boil. So if you want to, oh, my oven's preheated. Go ahead, if you're cooking, preheat your oven as well. If you are trying to get water to boil, you want it to boil faster. I mean, nobody's happy waiting forever for water to boil. So I use a skillet and it comes to cook quicker. So it doesn't work if you're making something like really, it needs a lot of water, but it definitely works for most of my needs. So we are going to cook a cup of lentils. And if you need me to go over something else, or if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments, and Jim will answer them or let me know if it's something I need to answer. Now, these are just the little brown lentils. They're super cheap. You can't find them at every store because when I would visit family in some small towns in Texas and Oklahoma, I would go into their store and they didn't have lentils, but any like major chain grocery store is going to carry lentils. And this is about a cup. I have another packet I could open, but it'll be fine. We don't need to do that. So I'm just going to show you. It's just almost full. And it's a cup of lentils. So this, I'm just going to put them in, and then I need to add my water. Now you can do a couple of ways. You can use a lot of water and they will get big and plump. If you want them to retain their shape, sometimes you use a little less. I didn't even print my recipe for this, but it's not an exact science, and here's why. When you're cooking these lentils, steam is going to evaporate, and I do cover them with a lid to try to keep that steam in there. But some of it obviously is going to come out, and sometimes I end up adding a little more water. Sometimes I have to cook it longer with the lid off to let the water evaporate. So I usually start with about a cup and a half, 2 cups of water. I'm just going to do 2 cups because I'm not going to be focused on these since I've got so many other things going. And then I don't have to worry about them burning. It's easy to cook off a little extra water if I need to. Okay, and I am just gonna pour these in. Give it just a little stir. Some people will rinse their lentils first or wash them. That's totally fine. I actually normally kind of pick through them to make sure there's no debris, although lentils don't typically have a lot. And I'm just gonna stick these on my stove behind me because it's kind of like a nothing to see here type situation. And I will cook the soup later in front of you. Let's get this going. And I'm gonna turn this to medium for now. And just to help it get going, it'll take a few minutes. So it's a little slow. Next, we're gonna get started on our quinoa. So let me grab that. I'm using my other skillet. I got my 2 favorite skillets that I cook almost everything in. So let me talk a little bit about quinoa. First of all, let me say for this salad, at the restaurant, I believe they use rice, but I like to just change it up a little bit. We typically eat a lot of rice, and quinoa is just a great stand-in. Quinoa is one of those things that you can make and just cook it plain, like I don't season it at all. And then throughout the week, I can add it to different things. I could add a little bit to a soup to make it a little bit heartier. I could add it to a salad and not even really know it's there, but get the nutrients from that. There's a lot of ways to just incorporate it. You can add a little bit to your breakfast, especially if you're already having some kind of whole grain breakfast. You could add a little bit of that, or just have it standalone. I have several recipes for breakfast quinoa on my blog. And I've got a few more I'm going to experiment with soon. So here is our cup of quinoa. Can you go to the next camera? So it's just like tiny little pieces of grain. I don't know, but that's.
Yeah, no, it's not focusing.
Might just be too hard to see. Oh well, it'll be fine. So tiny little pieces of grain. And with quinoa, they have a like bitter taste on them. It's almost like a natural bug repellent. And you can use a very fine mesh strainer and drain or like rinse those. And I typically do, but this particular bag, this brand, I haven't really needed to. It's seemed to be, it's a lot of times they claim to be pre-rinse, but I feel like they still need more pre-rinsing, but this one's been fine. So I'm not going to take the time today. If I was cooking this without doing a video, I very likely would, just because I would take the extra time, but we got a lot to do today, so we're just going to keep moving. Okay, so for people who are in the membership, you'll notice that you have this recipe for the salad. And then also in the batch cooking section, you have a recipe for just quinoa and just lentils. So like you can make those on your batch cooking day without ever worrying about how it's going to fit in the salad. But if you are just not in the membership, we have the link to that recipe that Jim will put in the comments. So we are going to do 1.5 cups of water for the quinoa, and it's similar to what I said about the lentils. Like you might need to add a little extra, or you can let a little extra cook off. Like we're not stressing about this. It's not a big deal. It'll be fine, really. Like I heard from someone in the membership this week, and they were just like, I just really like how you show us how we can substitute things and not stress about it. Like we're not worried about ruining everything. I mean, I have ruined recipes, but most of the time, making small changes is not like that big of a deal. So let me get some water to put in this pot. So if you notice on any of the up close of these videos, both like my measuring cups and then my measuring thing here, like most of the numbers are all off of it. Like they've just overused being cleaned. You can't really see them anymore. It's fine. We're not going to worry about it. I generally know what they are. I'm sure you all trust me on that. Okay, I'm just going to give this a little bit of a stir. Sometimes the quinoa will tend to like float a little. It's okay. Once it starts to cook, we'll check on it and make sure that everything is down where it needs to be. Okay, and I'm going to put the lid on and then just put this on the stove behind me again to let it start cooking. Move this here for right now. The lentils over here are already cooking, and they're steaming really well. So I'm going to turn those down to like low medium because they are very steamy. They were like rapidly boiling. And then I'm going to turn the the quinoa to a medium right now to get those going. And then once they're boiling or simmering, we'll turn it down just to a low simmer. Okay, I'm going to have a little water break. We are about to start making the pumpkin baked oatmeal. Now, I hope you're not tired of pumpkin things yet. I am actually using the leftover pumpkin from the pumpkin granola that I made in the last video when we did a live batch cooking session here. So if you have some leftover pumpkin, definitely, like if you're not going to use it right away, stick it in the freezer. So I stuck mine in a Ziploc bag. I flattened it out and just let it freeze flat. And then this morning, like an hour maybe before we did the video, I was like, oh no, I need to get my pumpkin out of the freezer. So I ran it under the water for a few minutes and just set it in the sink, and it defrosted. It's easy peasy. And I also have a can of pumpkin to show you because I'm just using canned pumpkin from the grocery store.
Want me to put the recipe in?
Sure, go ahead. So if you're making this with us, which I did not give you advance notice because this was our surprise recipe for the morning, but if you have these ingredients, go ahead and run around and grab them all. I am gonna grab our things and get I have all my ingredients in here, but I need to bring them over to the counter. Okay, I love this recipe because it's so moist, so good, so easy, and my kids love it too, which is great. Here. Okay, I think I got most of what we need. If you heard some beeping behind me, it's because my lentils were still like starting to boil over a little bit. I turned them down and I remembered I did not set a timer, which happens a lot if you have watched any of these cooking videos. Even when I'm not distracted by videoing, I still forget to set timers often. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of set that off, and this is turned down to low now. And it is just firing away. Now, if you could put that in a traditional like stock pan or something, or like a big pot, you would still be waiting for that water to boil. Okay. In fact, I'm going to grab a little water in my measuring cup just in case. So,
remind us, Holly, what the two things are cooking behind you?
So behind me, I'm cooking lentils and quinoa. And those, I'm cooking them separately, and they are going to be used in a salad this week that I'll be eating. It's a play on the lentil patouche salad from Pita Jungle. It's a salad that I love, and I will make often. It's great for like fall, winter, because you can heat up the lentils and quinoa and then put it on your salad, so it's like a hearty, warm salad. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do right now for this pumpkin baked oatmeal is I'm going to get my flax eggs going, because those take a while to set up. And usually as quick as I go in the video, they won't quite be set up, but it'll be fine because it's not a big deal. It still adds all the nutrition, which is super important. And truth be told, this oatmeal will set up without them. It's not needed for the texture or consistency. It adds nutrition, and it's a great way to get flax seeds. And Dr. Greger recommends a tablespoon of ground flax seeds every day. So I'm trying to do that. I'll often add them to salads, oatmeal, smoothies, all kinds of stuff. So definitely get your ground flax seeds. So to make flax eggs, we need one.
Got a question from Sharon Greasy. What would you use instead of molasses?
Oh, you can just leave the molasses out. I just kind of added that because it's one of those ingredients that is used in a lot of fall cooking, and it adds minerals and nutrition that I don't normally get other places. So if you don't have molasses, feel free to leave it out. It's not too big of a deal. Okay, and I also see that my quinoa is boiling, so I'm going to take a look at that real quick. Okay, I'm going to turn that down. So I did set a timer after it had been cooking for some time, so I'll check on that in about 7 minutes. So back to this ground flaxseed. And Sharon, thanks for joining us today. I'm looking for a measuring spoon that I never use. That's okay, I'll skip it. All right, so for ground flaxseed, you can grind your own flaxseed in your blender, which is I regularly do. I was doing it so much, I'm getting a little annoyed with it, so I just bought a big container of ground flax seeds from my local Sprouts. So now I have flaxseed for months. So the general rule is 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds for every 3 tablespoons of water, and that makes 1 flax egg. So I want 2 flax eggs. So I am going to use 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed and 6 tablespoons water, which is about 1/3 of a cup. So 1, 2, and then I'll just use some of this water I poured, and I'm using just the same measuring thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Just going to put that water aside there. I'm just stirring this up with my little measuring thing. I don't really need this for anything else right now. And I'm just going to let this sit. And as it sits, it will congeal a bit. Normally people use this in baking to take the place of eggs because it's a good binder. I just want the nutrition. I'm trying to always add more ground flax to my diet. Okay, so I'm just going to set this aside, and now I'm going to move things around just a bit so that it's easier for everyone to see when we're mixing things up. All right, so let's do a little shuffle here, shuffle things back and forth. And I will also show you the brands that I'm working with because I've been getting a lot of questions about what brands I prefer, and I am happy to share that information. So let me get another drink of my coffee because, you know, got to have that. All right. So we got our ground flax seeds going. I'm going to add them much later. I also have pumpkin. Now I am just using leftover pumpkin that from something else, but it's just a can of pumpkin from Kroger from my fries. And it's just 100% pumpkin puree. It's no additives or anything. So there you go. Grab my last couple ingredients. Now I've got my big bowl. My oven is preheated to 350. I am going to grab my pumpkin puree that I defrosted. And I had just stored it into like a freezer bag. And this won't be the most glamorous thing to get out of here, but you know what? And I'm not even going to measure this because it's about a cup. So I'm just going to squeeze it out. It'll be the easiest way. Like, I probably could have just cut the corner off the bag and squeezed it that way, but it didn't occur to me to do that until I was already doing it the other way. I don't use a lot of plastic, store things in plastic bags in the freezer. Okay, so that's about a cup. If you make a recipe and you have a little more than a cup, it'll be fine. Use it. If you have a little less than a cup, it'll be fine. Use it. If it's like a significantly less amount, like you only have half a cup, add a mashed banana, and that will be enough, especially if it's very ripe. Like if it's a little too ripe that nobody will touch it in your house because there's too many brown spots, that is perfect for putting in this. Okay, so we have our pumpkin puree. We are going to start adding some spices now. So let me get some measuring utensils. I'm just going to grab my whole little caddy of them and my vanilla. There's my vanilla. I don't know what Jim's laughing at. I hope it's the comments and not me. So I actually am not seeing any of the comments on my, oh, there's one. Okay. So we've got the pumpkin puree. We are adding the sea salt, so I need to add 1/4 of a teaspoon. And so this is actually a 1/2 teaspoon measuring thing, so I'm just filling it halfway full. And I still use real salt in our salt shaker because we do have salt in our diet. Some people who eat plant-based eat a no salt, oil, or sugar diet, but we don't eat oil, but we eat the others. I switched to a combination of the real salt that's like a mineral salt from Utah, and also Morton iodized sea salt. And the reason I changed to this is because I have a long history of thyroid issues, and in doing research, ran across the need that your thyroid has for iodine, and I thought, I've been using plain sea salt and mineral salt for like over 10 years. I don't really get a lot of iodine in my diet. So I switched to this, and I started feeling a little better immediately. Like I wasn't feeling bad, but I definitely noticed an improvement. So I thought maybe this is something that I was missing, and doctors don't really look for that in your blood test. So that's why I want to make sure I'm telling you about my brands. It's just Morton's iodized sea salt. And I found it at my local Fry's. Next, we're going to add vanilla extract, and we're using 1/2 teaspoon. If I add this to recipes, because I think it adds a little something, but it's nothing to stress over. So if you are out of vanilla, skip it. If you have a different extract you would like almond or something, that's fine to use as well. But a lot of times, if the recipe calls for vanilla, most of the time I skip it. I don't have time for that. Okay. We're going to add that. Now we are going to add the pumpkin pie spice, which is 1 teaspoon. Okay, that's my timer to check on the lentils and quinoa. So let me do that. I will grab a pot holder so I don't hurt myself. Now, what I'm checking for here is I'm going to check to see if there's still liquid in this pot. Like if I have run out, I'm going to check to see if the lentils are cooked, like if they're plump and have absorbed the liquid. And then if they look good, I'm going to taste them and see if the feel of them in my mouth is how they need to be. So let me check that real quick. Okay, most of the water has cooked out. They do look plump. I'm going to show them to you in just a minute. I'm going to taste them first. So this is when I'm tasting food, and I'm only cooking for our family, not others, is I take my lid off, I put some in my spoon, and I hold it over because I'm very messy, and then I blow on it until I can taste it, and I still burn myself. But it's my way. They're okay. They're good for salad because they are firm, but I think I want to cook them just a tiny bit longer. They are starting to split a little, which is a sign they've cooked enough. But actually, I don't know. The other ones tasted perfect, so I'll add just a tiny bit more water. I probably added like 3 tablespoons, maybe. I'm going to give them another stir. Put the lid back on, and they're just on so low that they're barely doing anything. I'm also going to check on my quinoa now. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty fluffy. Just a tiny bit of water left in it. So all the quinoa, little tiny seeds are getting plump and full, so that I know that they're cooked. There's still a little bit of extra water in here to where it you can just tell that it's not as fluffy as it would be. So what I want to do is I'm going to taste test it. I'm going to blow on this for a minute so I don't hurt myself. Perfect right here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is turn that off. I'm going to leave it on this burner for a few minutes because there's still some water that I want to evaporate out, and it's still warm. So I'll check on it in just a couple of minutes, and then I will take it off the burner, and I'll show you what it looks like. So let me get another spoon, and I'm going to check on the lentils again. I had turned them down so low that I think I'm just stirring them. Make sure there's nothing stuck to the side. I haven't eaten breakfast yet, so I'm just checking it. Yeah, I think it just needs to cook a tiny bit longer. Okay. And I think the quinoa is ready to show you. Okay. So this quinoa,
I think the closer you get to that, the better.
yeah, I'm going to just set it on this induction burner for a minute so you can see it. I'm going to zoom in a little if I can. Okay.
It's not.
It's not getting focused. Okay. Yeah. So I'll let this in back out. Now the quinoa is nice and fluffy. All the water has cooked out. It's like the little seeds, how they were tiny and like, what's the word? They were just like little white seeds. Now they're a tiny bit more like translucent in that, or opaque. I don't remember what the correct word is, but they're lighter in color. And we're just going to set this aside. I don't need to leave the lid off anymore because all the liquid that I wanted to get out is out. And I'm just going to put the lid on this and put it back on the stove, off the burner. Because I just want it to stay warm so that when I make the salad, I can show you that. I'm going to set this timer. 3 minutes. If you've ever been here when I'm cooking, this is like basically exactly what it's like. I lose my train of thought. I have to check on other things. Normally, I have to give a ton of hugs from the kids. They're watching TV in the other room. It's a wonder I get things done, but we've got a lot going on this morning. So where were we? We were about to add some pumpkin spice mix. Pumpkin spice. If you don't have pumpkin spice already made, you can mix together cinnamon, cloves. What else is in this? Ginger, nutmeg, allspice. And we actually did that in the in the granola recipe. So I am just going to take this off, and we use a teaspoon. I love this mix so much. I just got it it's actually a Walmart brand. It's great value, organic pumpkin spice mix. If you love this flavor, you can add extra. If not, just use what the ingredients say. If you don't have quite enough, just use less. I will say that spices go bad. They get stale. Put this back so you can see this better. So if you're not going to use all those individual spices, it's a great idea to buy the mix because then you'll use it up faster. I use this pretty quickly. All right, so we added the salt, vanilla, pumpkin pie. Now we're going to add the molasses. Now, as we mentioned to Sharon, if you don't have molasses, you can just not use it. Just skip it. It's not a big deal. No harm will come to you. Okay, and just to make it easier, I'm just going to, oh, this is strong. I'm just going to spoon a few tablespoons in. This is also super messy and sticky. I don't use molasses in a lot of recipes, which is one of the reasons I wanted to use it here. I use it in my barbecue sauce recipe. And I'm going to like carry this to the sink without dropping it. I don't want that all over the place. And then next we are going to add our maple syrup. Now, another way to make this, if you don't want to use this much maple syrup, I mean, you could use sugar or you could use date paste, which is the way I thought about doing it, but I did not, my dates are a little on the dehydrated side and I did not soak them. So this is how we're doing it. And this does call for half a cup. That makes it very sweet, but we kind of have this as like a dessert more than like a breakfast. You can use less if you would like, because it does go through maple syrup pretty quickly. Now we are using real maple syrup. I am not using pancake syrup. There's a difference. You want to make sure you're using real syrup. And this one is great value maple syrup. I also have gotten it from Costco. I got it from Sprouts. It just kind of depends on what store we're ordering from when we're out. That's where we get it from. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a stir. Oh, and I'm also going to check on my lentils. Okay. These look pretty good. I'm going to do another taste test. So I love lentils. I like them more than anyone in our family. They're not on the lentil train quite as much as I am, but lentils are so good for you that if you're not sure about lentils, give it a try. Try to add them to your diet a little bit. Whatever kind you prefer, red lentils, brown lentils, whatever. And do a little research on them, because once you learn how good they are for you, you'll be more likely to give them a try. That's my little PSA about lentils. Okay, what I'm going to do now is finish these last two that have fallen if I can. Oh, no, I'll drop on the floor. Kick it under the counter. So I am going to just let these for another minute or so without the lid on, because there's a tiny bit of liquid that I want to cook out. Tastes so good. Okay, stirring. Feel like a little bit like the Nutty Professor. All right. So I just want to stir this together. You don't have to stir it now. I prefer to stir like every step of the way, but I'm just going to stir this now. And then one benefit to doing this is if you have like a spice clump, it doesn't just get stuck in one part, it mixes in. Okay, that looks pretty good. Everything's mixed together well. Let's see. And then I'm going to add baking powder, a half teaspoon. I need to find a half teaspoon. There we go. Just gonna sprinkle that in. And then next, I'm going to add my rolled oats. Now, you want old-fashioned oats. You don't want instant oats. You could do it. It would be fine. Like, I'm going to scare you away from using what you got. Do not use steel cut oats, however, because they would not work with this. But traditional rolled oats would work. I am using Bob's Red Mill gluten-free old-fashioned oats. I think these are gluten-free. The top just came off. None of us have celiac disease, so we're not, we don't use it for that reason, but I'm doing 2 cups. I don't want to forget. I have a hard time remembering how much of stuff I'm using when I'm talking. 2 cups. Jim normally makes the coffee for us. But if I'm making the coffee and I start talking, we might end up with really strong coffee. Okay, 2 cups of oats. And then I'm going to stir this together. And basically, this is just kind of to coat all the oats in that pumpkin-y, sweet, delicious goodness. Okay, now this is it's almost the texture of my granola before I cook it. But let me show you the next thing I do. So I'm just kind of like spreading it down in here. Sorry, that was loud. Now I'm going to add rice milk. Now I have to say, if you are in the membership and tried making this recipe, I think last week or whenever it was in there, I just realized a typo this morning. It says a half a fluid ounce of rice milk. That is not the case. Sorry. Oh, Lord help me. You actually want a half cup of rice milk. I don't know how it would turn out without it. So if you made it with the wrong instructions, I'm sorry. And please tell me how it turned out, because that would be a nice little experiment. I would like to know. So I am just going to use the same measuring cup that I used for the maple syrup because it's the right measurement, even though I normally use the correct container for liquid measurements. But we're not worried about it.
I'm gonna go ahead and throw up the recipe.
Oh yeah, throw the recipe up again. So, so this is the correct. So take a screenshot now because this recipe is not on my website. And I thought about posting it, but I'm just like, I don't know if most people are done with pumpkin or finishing up with pumpkin. And I don't want to keep it going too long. So we're taking like our little coffee and water breaks while you're screenshotting and copying this down. Oh, I see Kara. Hi, Kara. Kara is like one of my longest friends here in Arizona. I love her. So I don't know if there's any other comments or questions. But if you have any, definitely feel free to leave them. So what I did is I just poured the rice milk in and I haven't done anything else. And basically what I want to do, you can stir it in if you want, but it just needs to sit. We want to absorb it. And now, I know you can't see, but I'm pouring in the, actually, I'm just going to wait a minute on that. Jim is running around the background. I wish you could all see it. It's hilarious. He's getting another cup of coffee. Okay. Can you switch back to the thing real quick? And to the other one, the food one. All right. So I poured the rice milk in, gave it a little stir, and now I'm pouring in the flax seeds. Now this is not as set up as it could be. I know you won't be able to probably tell too closely, but it is very congealed, kind of not quite tapioca pudding close, but it's looking pretty good. I'm going to pour that in. And then, so what I want to do here is I'm going to stir it up. And then I like to let it set for a little while. So, yeah, this is probably where we should have put the recipe up and pause. But okay, so what we've done is we just added the rice milk and the flax eggs, because I like to add those last. And then I let it rest because it's going to start soaking. The oats are going to be soaking up that liquid, soaking up the rice milk, soaking up the.
I can put it back up.
That's okay. Soaking up the molasses, all the good stuff. And you could skip this step, I'm sure, but I just always let it set for a few minutes while I was letting the oven finish preheating, although it's done now, preparing my pan. Because normally I use a 9x9 pan for this. You could use a pie pan, like you could use a casserole dish. It doesn't really matter. I like it to be at least like 1.5 inches thick, just so that it's not too thin. But sometimes I'll use like an 8x8 square, and then it makes it a little bit thicker. There is another optional ingredient, which are these raw pumpkin seeds. And instead of mixing them in, I'm just going to sprinkle some on top. But I have an idea for another variation that those of you who are like me and like to have this for dessert, you could also add, if you wanna, it's one of our little phrases, you could add some vegan chocolate chips. I've never tried this brand, but I found them at Fry's, and so I thought I would give them a try because these are dairy-free, nut-free, and soy-free, which we don't need all that, but I like to get the vegan products. So you can even sprinkle some of those on top, or like melt some and sprinkle them on. I don't know. I'm testing some other recipes, so that's why I got those. But that's 2 options for toppings that you could try: chocolate chips and the pumpkin seeds. You could also do like walnuts or whatever else. Chopped up pecans would be good. So after this is set for a few minutes, normally, as I mentioned, I put it in my pan. I will always use either parchment, or I'll just spray it with a little bit of cooking spray. Like, we don't cook with oil, but I don't want to things not to come out of a pan. So I'm not opposed to spraying a little bit of cooking oil. Sometimes I'll even like just rub it around with my hand or get a paper towel and like clean it up, and that way there's not like too much, there's not an excessive amount, but we bake things so infrequently that it's not something I'm worried about. So let me get my pan for this. Okay, so this is my Pampered Chef Brownie pan. People who have it love it. I love it because nothing sticks. I don't have to put any cooking oil or anything in this pan, and it comes out perfect. So I'm gonna just make a little more room. I'm moving a few things. And as a reminder, I need to check on my lentils. Somebody needs to keep me on track here. All right, and let me show you what those look like, if I can. So,
Yeah, that's good.
there we go. So these are nice and plump. The water's cooked out of them. And it made about a little over 2 cups probably. So, all right, I'm gonna stick these on a back burner. Off the heat with the lid on, turning off the stove. Okay. Now I'm going to put my baked oatmeal into my pan. I do not have a cookie scoop. I usually will just use like 1/4 of a cup measuring spoon. So pretty high tech like that. Now these aren't gonna like rise considerably. I mean, this isn't like something that's gonna puff up a lot. So I just kind of fill it about to the top. So you may be able to see that it's just a little smaller than the top, and it'll probably rise up a little. Okay, and I'll show you again once I get the whole thing. I don't know exactly. I've never made it in this pan. I don't know exactly how much it's going to make. But like I said, I'm just using like 1/4 cup measuring cup. Thank you, darling. And just putting it in. And then I just kind of pat it down because I want it to fill those corners. The great thing about using this pan is that we're not having to store a big container in the refrigerator, because these need to be stored in the refrigerator. And we're not having to cut it, because when we make it in a casserole dish or something and then cut it, we just don't end up with as many servings, because we tend to make really big cuts, to have really big pieces, because it's so good. So this will help us a little bit with some portion control, which probably just means I'll have 2. I think 2 is an acceptable breakfast, especially if you're pairing it with like a banana or something, because this is very sweet and rich. I might eat a few nuts to go along with it. Ooh, this is going to make a good amount. Hadn't made it quite like this before. All right, we are going to be sitting pretty. If you had a cookie scoop, you could use that. I just don't have one. I try to pare down and not have too much extra stuff, but I like extra stuff. All right, so we are ending up with 11. Could we have stretched this to 12? Sure. Do we need to? No. That last one's a little empty, so I'm just getting the rest of this. Ooh, my tummy just growled because of the smell so good. Okay, so this is what we end up with. 11 servings. They're filled pretty much to the top. They have a little room to rise, and I'll show you what they look like. Now, normally in the 9x9 pan, these are going to need to bake for about 40 minutes. But since this are like tiny little mini versions, I'm going to set the timer. I'm remembering right now. And I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes and then check on them. And I think that'll probably be all we need. So I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm not going to burn myself. So hot. Okay. Timer, 20 minutes. Start. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to move a few of these ingredients out of the way. Before I do that, I want to tell you about something coming up. I almost forgot to tell you. If you get my weekly emails. You'll already have seen this morning, but so a few weeks ago, I shared information about the Plant Fit Summit. And it's a free way to watch a ton of plant-based experts share their knowledge for free about different aspects of the plant-based diet. This is a GI Health Summit. It's brand new. They're just starting it this year, but it's the same people who put together the Plant Fit Summit. I'm a huge fan. And I became an affiliate, but it's free, so you don't have to buy anything. So Jim is about to leave the sign-up information in the comments, but if you're interested in GI health, and what that means is like your stomach, your digestive system, everything from your mouth to where, any of that health, then there are going to be experts that talk about this. They're going to talk about, getting dysbiosis, how to remedy that. They're going to talk about the interaction between like GI health and Alzheimer's, toxins in GI health, how it affects different parts of your body, mood, depression, anxiety, lots of different things. I signed up last night. I haven't looked through all the information yet because there's 40 doctors. So I like to go in, read everybody's bio, read what they're going to be talking about, and put on my calendar which one, because it's spread out over like 10, 12 days, something like that. So if you're interested, I have an affiliate link that Jim put in the comments. You can check it out. You can sign up for free. So I recommend that you sign up, and then you can see if there's something that you want to learn more about. You can. Each recording, because they're spread out over several days, is on for about 24 hours. So it's really good. Sometimes I would turn it on when I would take a lunch break or when I was working on something else so that I could listen. And it's really good information. So I'm just kind of geeky about that. I read Fiber Fueled, which is a great book about your GI health. And it definitely encouraged us to change up the way we eat, to make sure we're adding more plants, adding fermented foods. We started adding broccoli sprouts. I think I'm going to make a video about how we changed our diet after reading that book. And Dr. B, who wrote that book, is also there. Also, there's Dr. Greger, so many people, so many. Anyway, the next thing we need to make is soup. We're going to make the green chili rice soup. So if you're making this with us, we have a link to that recipe that we'll put in the comments in just a minute, but it's super simple. Normally it's brown rice, but because we are, wanting to finish up and not be here all day, brown rice takes 45 minutes to cook on the stove. We are going to use jasmine rice because that'll cook in about 15 minutes, so it'll speed it up a little bit. So you need brown rice, you need like a broth or broth mix, you need black beans, you need green chilies, which I forgot are still in my pantry. I'll get those in a minute. You need cilantro and lime juice. So pretty easy. And I'll talk about, if you don't have one of those, how you can mix it up. So let me just put this stuff in the sink, move these ingredients out of the way, and bring in our new ingredients. And if you have any questions about this recipe, the GI Health Summit, or anything else plant-based, go ahead and let us know. Okay. Oh, you know what? I just realized I forgot to put these pumpkin seeds. That's okay. We don't need it.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. Okay. Put this back in the fridge. I feel like I need to have like a little video we put up of like a little intermission thing, like they used to have at the movie theaters where the little popcorn would dance and stuff like that. Maybe one day we'll get that. And it could be my little cleanup dance. Get these ingredients over here. I need to get my cilantro out. And I need to get my limes. I also need to get a knife to cut them. Jimmy. Okay. So let's see what we got. We got our recipe, and have you linked that recipe yet in the comments?
The cilantro lime?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this recipe has been on my blog a long time. It's just because I like Mexican food, more truthfully Tex-Mex. I really like green chili, and when I went plant-based, I couldn't have or would choose not to have some of my favorite like chicken green chili enchiladas, if anybody knows that. So, but I didn't want to just like replace it with a lot of like, make a fake cheese and make fake chicken and make all this. I just wanted something that had a similar taste, but it was, you know, used whole ingredients and that would kind of hit the spot and be really good. So that's why I came up with this. And like I mentioned, we normally use just like long grain brown rice. And this is like really cheap at the grocery store. But because it takes so long to cook, we are going to use jasmine rice today, and it will cook quicker. It's not quite so, it's healthy perhaps, but it's still going to be really good. And it's still going to be something that we enjoy all week. All right, so got my pot. And I'm going to put it on this burner. I'll adjust that in a second. We get some water. And I just filled this measuring cup up so I would have enough. I also need an onion. I think I have an onion in this recipe. Yep, I do. And a bigger cutting board. I forgot I needed onion in this because I'm so well prepared. All right. Let me get a bigger knife as well. So we are using yellow onion today. The recipe calls for white onion, but you can use what you have. I think I even have some diced onion in the freezer that I could use if I wanted. When I'm cooking soups or anything that has onion, I prefer to start that first because I like to get it cooking. I like to smell it while it's cooking. So we are going to start. So here's the thing. If I was cooking this on the stove and since it takes so long, I might start cooking the brown rice first. But since I'm cooking this using this quick cooking jasmine rice, by the time I get my onion cut up, the rice will be almost done. So I'm not going to do it that way. I am going to start cooking up the onion now and start cooking that first. If you wanted to adapt this to the Instant Pot, I have not done that yet, but what I would recommend is cooking the brown rice with the broth, with the onions and garlic, getting that cooking first, and then after it's done, then add your black beans, then add your cilantro, then add your lime juice. So I'm going to just peel some of this onion off. I have a trash can here on the side. People never know that. Looks like I'm throwing stuff in the floor. So I try to mention it. It's not one of those places where other than that lentil I dropped in the floor earlier. Normally we don't do that, but I don't want to pick it up off the floor and have to wash my hands right now. Okay. I would have done this ahead of time, but I forgot about using onion. We've been a little busy lately. Okay. So I need about half of an onion. Half of a cup would do. We like to use extra onion. I don't think Tina's watching today, but Tina gets me because she's like, just use the whole thing. Like, no need to save it. Use the whole thing. All right, so I'm just going to cut this onion in half. I don't mind big pieces of onion. This is not a recipe our kids are going to use, so I don't need to try to make it smaller pieces for them. I just want to get it going. So trying to make sure I don't cut myself. That would be bad. I'd probably pass out. Okay. So I just cut these, and like kind of like they're diced mostly. A few random ones here didn't get the memo. But they're in pretty big chunks because, like I said, our kids aren't going to eat it, so it's not going to matter. I'm going to pour these into this pot. Oh, this onion smells really good. It's like all of a sudden it took me back to Grandma Curdy's, one of my grandmas in Texas, great grandmas. We used to eat at her house and work in her garden. This onion just smelled exactly like that for a minute. I need to rinse my hand off. I'm really glad I didn't have to cut up that onion any longer because it's so fragrant. I think I'm almost going to start crying. But anyway, so I've got that onion, and now I'm going to turn on this burner. Now this induction cooktop's a little loud. I hope you don't have any issues hearing. Sometimes it kind of buzzes for a little bit at first, but it shouldn't last too long. All right. Drink of water. So an important part of the flavoring for this recipe is the veggie broth. So if you're using like a carton of broth or a can of broth, something you bought at the store, that's fine. Just make sure it's something that you like the flavor of because it's going to come through. We have a dry veggie broth mix that we make, and we created a video that we'll be uploading soon that shows you how to make that, or you can find the recipe on My Plant-Based Family. But if you don't want to make it yourself, use all those ingredients, you can use a store-bought broth, and this one is one of our favorites. I will put it up here close. You can get it on Amazon, and it has a really good flavor, especially in soups. I can hear because spoon to stir. I always like to use a spoon that's flat on the bottom because it's easier to kind of scrape the bottom. So the onions are starting to stick, and so that's why I've got my water here. I'm going to pour just a fourth of a cup maybe, just so that it doesn't stick. And when I'm stirring, I want to make sure they're not like stuck on the bottom. And then I want to make sure they're not stuck on the sides so that they'll cook. So I'm just making sure they're kind of spread evenly over the bottom. All right. So far all we have going is the onion. You could add garlic here if you want. We just happen to not use garlic in this soup, but normally we would. It's not too big of a deal. Next, I want to add the diced green chilies. We're just using a 4-ounce can of diced green chilies, and it's roasted and peeled already. You can make it yourself, but we really like to just keep things easy. Open this. And the reason I like to add it now is I just like this green chili flavor. I mean, I love it. I have a really good dip. It's green chili cilantro dip. It's the dip version of this soup. And it uses white beans. Just gonna pour those in. Like my trash. And next, I'm going to add a little bit of salt. If you don't use salt, that's fine. You don't need to use it, but we do like a little bit of salt. And you can also add corn here. I'm not going to add it this time, but using frozen or some canned corn, fire roasted corn would be really good in this. And now I'm just going to add the rice. And then I'm going to add the broth, and I'll talk a little bit more about the broth. So the recipe on my blog is a much giant version of this. It creates a lot. We've kind of condensed it down, so it's going to make about 4 servings. So I'm just using 1 cup of rice. And again, I normally use brown rice, but for ease, we are not doing that today. And then we are going to use 4 cups of veggie broth or water with the veggie broth mixed in. So I have 4 cups of water here. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. And then I'm going to use a teaspoon for each of this, either my broth mix or this other broth, store-bought seasoning. 1 teaspoon for every cup of water, so that's 4 teaspoons. Now I have another broth that I'll show you in a minute. 4. And I'm just going to stir that and put the lid on. There's some like little clumps of the broth mix that need to be broken up. I'm not worried about that. And then my lid is right here. Okay. So now let me talk about the broth mix for a minute. Buying it is easy. It's not cheap, but it's simple. If you're buying the big containers, then you're paying a lot for the water, for the heaviness of what it's going to take, what it takes them to ship that to the store. So using this, even though it's not an inexpensive product for the flavor and how easy it is to use, not having to make your own veggie broth, for me, it's worth it. But one of the reasons you wouldn't want to use something like this, not necessarily this one, but any of the pre-made broth mixes, is if you have some kind of sensitivity or there's certain foods you need to avoid, then you'll want to make your own. And that's why I came up with our dry veggie broth mix that's on our website, because you can mix and match it and you can add things you like and take away things you don't like. So I need this to cook. It takes about 15 minutes for this rice to get done. So I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. I've got 2 minutes left on there, so let me set a timer on my phone. Timer 15. I often have, and I did start it, I often have multiple timers going on all the time. Okay, I'm going to peek in at the baked oatmeal also. Okay, ooh, it's puffed up nicely. I think those will be done in just a few minutes. So I'm going to move some of these things out of the way. Okay, don't need this rice or this broth. I will still need my cilantro and my limes. The onion over there. All right, so you can't really see this too well yet, but I'll show you. You're like, what in the world of science experiment does she have going on in there? That's a fair question. This is my cilantro. So I bought it last night at Sprouts, and when I got it home, what I do is I clean it by running it under cool water, and then I chop off the bottoms of the stems, just like if you buy fresh flowers and you bring them home to put in a vase, sometimes you'll cut off the bottom. I did that, and then I stuck them in some fresh water. But since I had just washed them and it was really late and I didn't want to babysit them much longer, I just decided to put a little paper towel over them to absorb some of that moisture. And then I stored a little plastic bag over them. Now, if you have a cold spot in your freezer or in your refrigerator, which we do, you may want to make sure you don't put these during a spot they'll freeze, because I have gone in thinking, man, that cilantro still looks great in the fridge, even though it was like in the back and should have been bad. I looked and it was like frozen. So a lot of places in like Texas and Oklahoma over the weekend or over this last week, they got like a freezing rain. And so they would have like beautiful like little rosebuds and like flowers and trees, where normally like, I mean, it's fall, but the stuff hasn't died yet. But this kind of early ice storm came through, and you could see them all coated nice. It was almost like a Sleeping Beauty type thing, or is it Sleeping Beauty, or is it the one with Belle? Who's that? Somebody knows. I don't know. Beauty and the Beast. That's it. Okay. So Beauty and the Beast, the rose. But anyway, so that's how I keep my cilantro. It keeps it fresh for like at least a week, sometimes longer. Sometimes it freezes and it looks good forever. All right, so let me check on those big oatmeal squares. You could also use a muffin tin for those, like just the muffin cups. But I just like these squares. Melt my face off, trying to get a hold of them. All right. So these look really good. I can just tilt it this way. They have puffed up a little bit. You can't really tell too much in this angle. They're too hot to handle, or I would show you. So I'm just going to put these on a trivet on the back counter and let them start to cool off. Grab a trivet. And so I still have 11 minutes on my other timer. And I'm going to turn my oven off because sometimes we'll be all done filming. We'll come back in here and realize that the oven's been on for an extra hour. So I turned that off. And if you have any questions, definitely let us know because we're kind of wrapping this up. We're almost done. So I think I covered everything I need to about the veggie broth. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. I am going to get the limes ready to add. I need to get the beans ready. So I am just going to be using a can of black beans. We're going to open it. We're going to rinse them, drain them and rinse them, because we can just pour this in when the rice is done. It would work, but it would be like a murky, dark soup. By draining and rinsing it, then it's just black beans in the rice soup. So we go ahead and open that. Okay. Hi, April. Good to see you. I always love seeing your comments on my Plant-Based Family's Facebook page. Always makes me smile. On my computer, I can see like just the last couple of comments. But so if I miss someone's, I'm sorry. Hopefully Jim is taking care of any questions you might have.
Oh, yeah.
We've thought about making a video where Jim does the cooking. If you want to see that, put it in the comments. Encourage him. So I have just a small little like strainer that we use specifically for pans. It holds probably 2.5 cups, maybe 2 cups, but it's perfect. So I'm just going to go over to my sink for a moment and pour this through here and then rinse them off quickly.
April says, yes, Jim cooking too.
Yeah. Come on, everybody. Have at him. Okay. So another reason that it's good to rinse your beans is that it also washes off extra like sodium that they were cooked in. And although it doesn't completely diminish it, it does reduce the sodium that it's going to be in your finished product. Put that in the trash. So I just rinse it until they come out clean, until there's no more dark water draining from them. And I'm going to take the lid off of this pan and check on this rice. Okay, it's boiling pretty good. I can probably turn it down a bit. Now the goal here, I'm going to scrape the bottom. This is a new, as I mentioned in our last video, this is a new cooktop and we only used it twice. So I can feel a little bit of things sticking to the bottom, not much, but I'm just scraping it. This is why I use this flat bottom spoon. So the rice is definitely cooking. It smells like green chili. I love it. I'm just gonna put the lid back on and let it keep going. because I want the rice to be completely done before I add the other things. And once the rice is completely done, I'm going to stir in the beans. I'm going to do the limes and the cilantro. The cilantro doesn't need to like cook for a long time. You just put it in there, and it's just that last second before eating. You can add more fresh right before you eat if you want. When I'm reheating it, so an important note about this soup is that anytime you cook soup with rice, and you're storing leftovers, it's going to like absorb all that liquid. And then instead of soup, you're going to kind of have casserole. So you're welcome. This is how you make green chili rice, cilantro, lime with black bean casserole. But it's still really good. But what I like to do when I reheat it, sometimes I'll add a little more water, but I almost always add another squeeze of lemon because it just lime, yeah, just brings it up. If you don't have lime, you could add lemon. You could also use the like little plastic container in the fridge of lime juice. We realized that we hadn't prepared. We were out of lime, so I went to the store last night and bought a few limes, 4 for $1. Okay, and you can just reduce your pot to where it's a simmer. Like this is boiling a little rapidly. So I'm turning it down. It's going to simmer long enough to cook the rice. I don't need it to, burn things up. Let's see, do we have any more questions? April, this is easy. You could definitely make this. I hope you do. Let us know what you think about it. Okay, so I'm going to prepare my limes, and what I'm going to do for those, as soon as I'll squeeze them, I will put them on my cutting board and like roll my hand back and forth. So I'll put it here and just kind of roll it. You could just cut it into, if you wanted everybody just to add their own lime, like maybe somebody's like, that's going to be too much, you could just cut it into wedges and everybody can add a little extra to their bowl. I like to add some like right after it cooks, and then I do like to add a little extra to my bowl. And then for the cilantro, I am just going to chop it up into little pieces. I try to avoid having big pieces of stem because that's super annoying. So just move these beans over a little bit. And then I'm gonna start cutting out my cilantro so that I'm ready to go when this timer, see how much longer I have on my timer. I've got almost 5 minutes left. And I always hate when I have to list measurements for cilantro because I'm like, you just use a handful. Like almost any time the answer is using a handful. Let some of that steam out. But in the software that I use for the meal plan members, it doesn't have a measurement for handful. I have to like pick, a cup, a half a cup, whatever. They've got a bunch that make total sense for normal people, but not necessarily for me. So I know a handful is pretty subjective too, but not everybody loves cilantro. And guess what? If you're one of those people who hate cilantro, totally leave it out. And it would still be good because it still has all that great green chili flavor. I'm just drying this a little bit. And then I'm going to just go ahead and like pull some of the leaves off the bottom because I already trimmed it last night. So there's still a lot of leaves in this bottom area, but I also don't want to have to deal with all these sticks, stems. So I'm just going to pull some of those off. And remember, I have a trash can here. I'm not throwing stuff on my floor. Not an animal. I wasn't raised in a barn. Any of that. I was raised in the country, but that's why it'll be fine. Okay. So now that I pulled most of the bottom, a lot of the bottom leaves off here, I'm just gonna like cut those stems off and throw them in the trash. I don't need them. I don't like the feel of the stems in when I'm eating, so all right. Just gonna open this, check on it, make sure the stuff's not too stuck. Oh, nothing's stuck at all. That first time I did it helped. And then the rice is getting pretty good. Go and test that. I mean, might as well.
I think Jim needs to test it as with a spoon.
Okay, the rice may not be done yet. Okay, there we go. It's hot, don't burn yourself. I have a pretty high tolerance for eating things that are burning hot. It's one of the benefits of cooking is tasting. So the rice is actually done. I know it says it needs a few more minutes, so I'm turning it down to its lowest setting. I'm gonna let it cook. I'm gonna put this back on while I chop up this cilantro. And I can feel more stems on that end, so I'm just gonna put it there. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of bunch this cilantro up into like a little ball, a little wad of cilantro, and then chop it some more. I don't mind kind of big pieces, but I don't like really long pieces. I do the same thing with spinach. I like, if I'm gonna add any kind of greens to my soup, I don't want some really long, like, piece of whatever it is that ends up feeling a little bit like slimy after it cooks for a while. Like, no bueno, please. Oh, and I want to show you something exciting. For those of you who like cilantro, but you can't always get it or it goes bad, let me show you, just clean my hands off and show you something exciting. Okay. So I may have showed you these before, but you can buy these little frozen packs of things. So here's kind of what it looks like on the back side. This is chopped cilantro. So if you don't have cilantro, a lot of stores have these in the freezer section. But I get it for cilantro, for crushed garlic, which I will, and then also for ginger. And then, let's see, until I use all of these. They're just like tiny little frozen mini ice cube versions. Oh, that's my timer for the soup. Oh, I accidentally pressed repeat. Turn that off. All right, I'm gonna turn this off. So if you have a hard time remembering to keep garlic or cilantro or even ginger, you can buy these, keep them in your freezer, and then just pop a few out. I don't know that it would work as much when you need a lot of cilantro, but like each one of these is equal to like a teaspoon of garlic or 1 clove of garlic. So this is a great thing to keep in your freezer. So like, for example, when I'm making a stir fry, I'll put some garlic and some ginger in, and then I have those extra flavors. Throw a bag of frozen stir fry veggies, and you have like a really flavorful meal that took almost no effort. So we put these away. Okay. All right, so this is done. I'm going to take the lid off. And then I'm going to add the beans. So I'm adding the beans to the soup. I'm going to add this cilantro that sticks to everything. And then I'm also going to add the lime juice. So the method I'm using, I already kind of like mixed this up. I keep pulling my pants up. I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm just going to squeeze it in. If you have a fancy squeezing contraption, you can use that. I have to make crazy faces when I do this because I use all my might. My nails are a little long, so it's kind of hard. It's kind of like squeeze it against the spoon. It's helping. Okay, that's half. Do the other half. So I like to do, and this is a pretty juicy lime. If it wasn't, I would want to use a couple. But I like to put 1 full lime into this pot. And then I like to Do a little bit extra in each bowl, as I mentioned. Now, for some of you who do eat salt, you're going to need to add more salt to this because it's not exceptionally salty. But those who avoid it, then you'll like it just as it is. Okay, I'm going to stop struggling with getting all the lime juice out of there. I'm just going to stir it. So a lot of the liquid cooked out because this burner runs so hot. And then what I do here is I stir it all in. And then I'm going to put the lid back on. And that lets the cilantro like flavor kind of steam into it. Okay, I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what that salad looks like. Remember when we first got started, I mentioned I was going to make a salad and we're using the the quinoa and lentils to make it. We are going to make that right now. So I'm just going to scoop this back a little bit.
There's one.
Yeah, I'm going to make it right here. I just need to get rid of some of these ingredients I have laying around that I don't need. And I'll just use this other cutting board. This up there. Get my staff to come clean us up. Just kidding. It's just us. Okay. So what I do is I am going to grab a bowl. It's always dangerous to open this. I didn't see the one I wanted to use, but so if I had pre-made this cilantro and lentils earlier in the week, and then I wanted to have a salad for lunch, I would grab a bowl and I would get my greens, which I'm going to grab now. All right, got a lot of greens here, so I can show you kind of how we do things. All right, we buy several kinds of greens and then we kind of mix them together. So I am going to do a little bit of spinach, and this is a smaller bowl that I normally use, but I couldn't find the big one, so I'm making a smaller version of this salad. Biggie size it if I was making it normally. And then I've got some baby romaine here. The restaurant uses romaine in their salad, but I like to add more colors of greens. And then I also got some baby spring mix, and just going to add some of that. So all in all, this is probably 2 cups of greens. And when we have our normal salads at lunch, we do about 4 cups of greens. But whatever works, it's fine. Depends on, we don't always, like sometimes I'll make Jim this giant salad and then he just doesn't have time to finish it. It's so busy. Okay. And I will scoot. I'm going to put this pans over here so you can see what they look like. Get my trivet. So here's the quinoa. So it is nice and fluffy. This quinoa could be used in just salad. And I only cooked 1 cup of quinoa, and I probably have at least 3.5 cups. So normally for each salad, I would use at least half a cup, maybe a cup. It depends on how much you want. But since I don't have the biggest bowl that I normally have, I'm just going to spoon some in here. Now this quinoa is just, it's dry and it's not seasoned with anything. And I do that so that if I want to have this in my oatmeal or mix it in for like a breakfast, I'm not having any kind of other flavor. If you're only wanting it for something savory, instead of cooking it with water, you can cook it with broth to get that. So I've added probably half a cup of quinoa there. Okay, and I've got the lentils. So these lentils are cooked. And again, I would probably want to use about a half a cup of cooked lentils on this salad. If you're making a really big salad, you could do more. And I'm just going to spoon those in here. Now, the Pita Jungle version, their lentils are cooked with celery, I know, and I think onion and garlic as well, but I just cooked these plain, and I will often add just cooked lentils to a salad. It tastes really good. It's something I enjoy. Okay, so far this salad has the greens, the lentils, and the quinoa. Then I'm gonna add it to diced tomato. And so what we do is for like, if usually we have kind of the same general thing for lunch, and I'm about to sneeze. Whew. I will make, if I'm using a tomato, I'll get half and he'll get half, or maybe sometimes I'll leave some on the counter for my son because he loves having our little leftovers. But if you don't like tomato, you can leave it out, or you can just have a little because it is really good for you, especially if you're trying to get as many plants in your diet as you can. You just sprinkle those on there. But I would say maybe half a tomato for each salad. I also like to add fresh black pepper to mine. And then cucumber. And we also kind of do the same thing for when we have salads. We always do cucumber. And then we just store the rest in the fridge. I like to peel mine. Jim doesn't, he sounds so picky, he doesn't need it. But I'll do like a fourth of the cucumber in each salad. So no matter how big the cucumber is, we get about a fourth of it. And I just dice it up or quarter it. We're not too picky about it. And again, I can leave some on the counter for our son to come through. Now, if we were eating this at Pita Jungle, it'd be so similar, but it would also have like crispy fried onions that are really good, but really oily. And it would also have like pita bread. It used to come with just pita bread triangles. Then they started just adding like sliced, like kind of dried pita bread in it. And that's good, but it makes it where it's no longer gluten-free. And it just adds like an extra component that's typically a processed food. So we don't necessarily add that, but we have this really good salad. And Pita Jungle has a really good dressing that goes with it, but it is an oil-based dressing and we don't do that. So you could make your own. You could just add some balsamic. You could do like lemon juice, or if you are using just a regular short-bought salad dressing that's your favorite, I recommend measuring it, because when you just pour it on, you're going to pour a lot. But if you just measure like a tablespoonful, then you'll know what you're getting. So this is how we make this salad. Oh, and I almost forgot red onions. This salad in the restaurant does come with red onions, and I happen to love red onions. I've got a little bit cut up here. I'm not really ready for red onions yet this morning, so I'm just going to put a little bit on there. So we don't have to go heavy on the red onions. There's a cucumber. There's this bag. Let's set these behind me. All right, so that's what we do at home. We're kind of weird, letting into some of our little weirdness. We have, oh, hi, Tina. I mentioned you earlier. I don't know if you heard me then.
I told us.
So she made the chili. Ooh, I'm glad you liked it. Okay. Yeah, I've been eating that chili. I made it again last week, and I just feel great. It's like perfect food for my body. But anyway, so this is the salad. It's very similar to the lentil potato salad at Pita Jungle. And if you try it, I hope you like it. When I am making this during the week, I mentioned how I put it all together. I will often heat up the lentils and quinoa first and mix them up so that it's nice and hot. You could also, another thing we would probably add to this if I was eating right now is baked sweet potatoes, because we usually have diced baked sweet potatoes in the fridge. So, okay, let's check on the soup, and then let's check on the muffins. Last two things. All right, so I'm gonna get just a small bowl because when you make all this food and have to put it away, we usually snack on it while we're putting it away. And I can't get a whole big bowl of it because then we'll have to eat a lot of it. Okay, let me just scoop this forward a bit. And this lid is still very hot, so I'm just gonna put it on the stove. And grab my spoon that I used to cook it. Stirred everything up. So a lot of the water is absorbed. I did cook it a little hot because I'm not used to this cooktop. And if you do the same thing as me, you know, you could add more water to make it more soupy, or you just eat it as is. Let's take a look. All right. So I don't know how well you can see that, but there is, you can see the rice, the beans, the green chili, the cilantro. The cilantro is the bright green parts, and the green chili is the muted green. And the whole soup is very greenish anyway, so it's really good. All right, so that's that. Scoop that back. Now I'm going to show you the muffins. Yeah, for now. So actually I said muffins, but I really meant baked oatmeal. And I just use like a small little spatula to get these out. It's a little, it's still warm, and I might have been able to cook it a tiny bit longer, but I'm not going to worry about that. So, oh, I doubt I can show you how this looks inside. I don't know if it'll focus in there, but it's really good. Maybe, I know what I'll do. I'll take a picture of this in a minute, and I'll stick it on my Instagram stories and Facebook stories so that you can see how good those look, because I'll be able to control it a little better. That's really good. Definitely dessert material, but you can also eat it for breakfast. Pretty sweet. So if I was eating this for breakfast, I'd eat one, maybe two, depending on how hungry I was, with definitely a banana, maybe like a few walnuts or peanuts to go with it. We got last taste test to make sure. Okay, we're finishing up. Last chance for any questions. Oh, and I'll probably have it with my coffee. Still drinking. It's almost noon here. I think most of you changed your clocks tonight. We live in Arizona and our time does not change. You don't have to worry about that. The rest of you, you'll need to do that. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I love hearing from you. We are brainstorming some of our next videos. I've had a request about what kind of brands we use. So that's something we're considering. If there's something you would like to see us make, definitely let us know. If you would like to see Jim in here cooking instead, or with me, definitely let us know. And we will see. Jim, is there anything I need to handle?
Around.
All right. So if you are interested in how I've mentioned these plant-based diet meal plans, you can get on the waiting list. We are considering opening those back up once before the end of the year. Haven't decided yet, but if we have like an overwhelming number of people coming on the wait list, we'll definitely consider that. Jim is going to grab the waitlist link and stick it in the comments. And if you want to learn more about the GI Health Summit, we already put that link in the comments earlier, and it is a free online summit with some of the, leading experts in plant-based health and GI health, and they are coming together. It's hosted by Chef AJ, who has been plant-based for many years and has a very popular YouTube channel. I actually have some of her books. One of her books was one of the first ones that I bought when we went plant-based, or a book on process. So if you have questions, let us know. Remember, if you ever need to reach out or get an answer to something that I may not be able to catch in the comments, especially like on YouTube. The chat disappears sometimes and I can't always find it. Make sure you email me or message me through Facebook or Instagram. I'm going to put these Instagram in my story and these baked oatmeal in my Instagram and Facebook stories in just a minute so that you can see those. But anyway, we appreciate you joining us today, and we will see you next time. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.